In the aftermath of the 2008 elections, when liberals were intent on dramatically expanding the size and influence of government, they were fond of telling the public that elections had consequences. But now that the 2010 elections have brought liberal dominance to an end, that rule seems to have gone by the wayside. The election of a Republican majority to the House of Representatives was supposed to stop the power grabs that were so frequent in the last Congress. But instead, all they have done is moved them out of reach of the voters. That's because instead of accepting their defeat, liberals are now trying to advance their agenda through the unelected, unaccountable federal bureaucracy. Take cap and trade, for example. While Nancy Pelosi was able to push this job-killing bill through the House, it never made it out of the Senate. Yet now the Obama administration is attempting to enforce the same kind of carbon regulation through the Environmental Protection Agency. If the EPA is successful, the increase in energy prices will lead to inflation throughout the economy, and the result will eventually be millions of lost jobs. Most disturbing of all, the EPA could create all this destruction without the vote of a single elected official. The same thing is happening in healthcare. After a public uproar over death panels, Democrats in Congress removed end-of-life counseling from Obamacare with great fanfare. But once the bill was passed, the Department of Health and Human Services had virtually unlimited power to shape its implementation. As a result, surprise, surprise, the so-called death panels came back by regulatory fiat. And only a public backlash prevented them from becoming a permanent part of Obamacare. Though this regulatory overreach is a huge challenge to the cause of limited government, the death panel example should give us hope. When citizen activists keep close tabs on their government, they can bring these abuses of power to light. And when the American people witness this regulatory tyranny, they are always willing to combat it. In an ideal world, we could count on government to do what's right. But if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that blind trust in Washington is almost always a recipe for disaster. Thus, to protect our freedom, we must remain vigilant. It may not always be easy, but it's a small price to pay for liberty. That's this week's Freedom Minute.